chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, dysautonomia, POTS, all very debilitating and confusing conditions to have to live with. And although the onset of these conditions may have been different for many of us out there, where there's no doubt in my mind is the fact that there are key similarities and dysfunctions with these conditions which can really help to point us in the right direction when it comes to actually achieving recovery. One of the biggest problems that I personally encountered on my own recovery journey, where I was housebound for over 7 years, was the fact that I was trying so many separate things to attempt to recover, but they weren't giving me the one thing that I was after more than anything, and that was a solid foundation where I could build stamina and momentum. And what they did all end up with was that they would offer my body short-term relief, but very soon after, my body would revert back to behaving the way it was previously. So let me explain to you why I believe this happens. And the first thing that I want to start off with is that I believe that the emergence of many of these chronic conditions that I just discussed is because of a combination of two key factors. And the first one is instability, and then the second one is a trigger. Now, instability occurs when somebody's body isn't taking in accurate information regarding their surrounding environment at an unconscious and ongoing basis. And when this information isn't being correctly interpreted by the sensory division of our peripheral nervous system, then mismatched neuronal signaling gets sent to our brain, and then our brain in turn struggles to know how to run the rest of our body. And when it comes to the trigger, this is typically an event, an illness, or a substance ingested which can actually impact the functionality and integrity of components of the sensory division of our peripheral nervous system. And this typically tends to be the onset of when these chronic conditions first arise. I would say that for most people out there, the emergence of these symptoms appears to be fairly rapid, and then what happens over time is that the severity of them often fluctuates, anywhere from them being a little bit of a hassle to live with to them being completely debilitating and often very life-limiting. But I think what all of us would agree on is that our health never truly gets back to being what it was before. With that being said, I truly believe that the number one reason why so many people out there are stuck on the first part when it comes to recovery is because they haven't been sufficiently assessed to know how their body is currently functioning so that they can have the appropriate treatment to offer them the building blocks to actually be able to build their current body into a stronger version of what it currently is. After 7 years of continuous setbacks, real changes only came about in my own recovery once I had the function of my brain and peripheral nervous system assessed by a chiropractic neurologist, and after running an extensive neurological examination, he was able to diagnose certain dysfunctions within my nervous system and then prescribe me with targeted neurological exercises to actually correct these imbalances. And this ended up being the turning point in my own recovery. As my vitals started to stabilise, certain levels were brought back to within a more normal range, and also I started to become far less symptomatic and far more energetic. And if you did want to understand a little bit more about why this had such a profound impact on my life and how it could ultimately change your health too, make sure to check out the Unbeatable Blueprint online course. In the course, I'm going to delve really deep into teaching you about some of these complex neuronal systems and why this treatment modality in particular can have such profound impacts on your health and your recovery. But back to the topic of this video specifically, and the number one reason as to why the first step to CFS recovery is the hardest and recovery from all these other chronic ailments is because your brain is using up so much energy running your body in an inefficient manner that it's leaving you with such little expendable energy to actually build up any sort of fitness. Because one of the key things that's separating a fit and healthy person from a person with a chronic ailment is that the body of a fit and healthy person is easily able to switch between what is a stress response and what is a relaxation response, and their body's able to do this effortlessly, whereas a person with a chronic ailment All of this happens with tons of adaptations, which makes it massively inefficient, and as a result, that person ends up with low energy levels and also tons of widespread symptoms. You see, a brain and nervous system that have suffered injury but then haven't been correctly and adequately rehabilitated or reconditioned is a little bit like if we were to break our arm and then have it in a cast for about 6 weeks, and then once that cast comes off, we decide that we never want to use that arm at all, and then suddenly, a few months down the line, we want to try and lift 30 kilograms. It's completely unrealistic. And the reason I use this example is because I believe this scenario isn't that far off of what's going on with CFS sufferers, where they want to go out, they want to try to build fitness, they want to be involved in these social settings and these social situations, but that is too far off of what their body is currently able to actually handle day to day. However, one thing that I will say is that one of the best things about all of this is that once you can identify and uncover the dysfunction and then actually work on improving it, what ends up happening is your body rewards you with more expendable energy because it's able to work as it was designed to work at the most basic level, and then that gives you the license to go and build capacity, and then what ends up happening is wellness then promotes further wellness. And this is precisely the reason as to why recovery gets easier once you can get over that first hurdle. It's a little bit like a strongman pulling a truck. Have you ever noticed how much energy the strongman has to exert just to get the truck moving to begin with? But once the truck does start moving, its own momentum moves it further, and suddenly the strongman doesn't have to exert nearly as much energy, and the truck actually starts to cover an even greater distance. With all of that taken into account, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, the hardest part to recovery is actually getting the ball rolling, and the way I believe this is achieved is by having the function of our brain and nervous system thoroughly assessed and then working on the dysfunctions that are uncovered with targeted neurological exercises to actually fine-tune these instabilities to help to bring our body back to its original and most optimal state.